Jonathan Blow on global state and programming. Hello, I'm Chris Athanas. I'm a KMP developer. Tech support said they have the new ticket and they're going to close that up on Tuesday. Thought I was recording this video, so this is the second time recording this. So I hope I'm a coherent as I was the last time. Let's keep going.
There are problems. Every problem has a certain natural amount of global state, which may be zero for, like, if your problem is to compute factorial and it's not a factorial of a very high number, the natural amount of global state there is very low.
Yeah, so just do a lookup table.
Right? Zero, probably. But keep in mind, there's already a difference. Like, you might compile in factorials for some numbers just to accelerate the computation, right?
Right, it was cached, okay.
And so you might have read-only global state, which is not really what they're talking about, right? When people say global state, they really mean things that could be modified at runtime, right? And so keep that in mind.
State, not data.
Anyway, I will tell you, every problem has a natural amount of global state. For some problems, that amount is zero, like the functional language and Rust people really want. But for a lot of problems, the amount of global state is naturally more than that.
Right, and even the Glow and the Rust people, they'll talk about their functional stuff. There's still a data thing that coming in and being transformed and going out. Even though there's no state kept inside, there may be state inside that object. Come on now.
For a video game, the amount of global state that's natural is huge. And if you say,
well, I mean, relatively speaking, right?
Oh, I didn't make a global variable. I made a singleton.
Oh, right. This is the thing I want to get into. Okay, so I am a strange person because I started computer programming when I was a little kid. And I went through and did all kinds of crazy stuff. I was working like almost 25 years. And then I did a startup and I sold it and I took 10 years off. And I did other stuff, yoga, meditation, massage, all this crazy stuff. And then I came back to software development. And this was one of the things that came up because I took a boot camp. I was like, I'm going to quickly get into this. It was like a 3-month thing. And I'm already a programmer, so it was totally cool and for a lot of fun, actually. It was like being in summer camp again. Anyway, so I was just learning and this thing came up. The teacher's like, it's like, okay, the singleton's like, well, isn't that just a global variable? It's like, no, it's not a global variable. It's totally different. It's totally different. You pass the variable around. It's like, but the thing is, conceptually, it's the same, right? You still have this global piece of thing that, that everything gets access. Even though you're passing it around every damn little thing around, it's the context variable, right? And he's like, no, it's totally different. It's totally different. And the reason why there was this big thing, because when I was learning programming, the whole address space was all available as a global variable. All the code, all the data, because I was doing my computers. And what people did is, because they only had global variables, is everything, they made these spaghetti codes where you had all these things accessing everything all at the same time. And it was extremely difficult to make a change and figure out what the hell was going on. So they developed this thing about subroutines. So you had this local stack. You had a stack of where we keep the state before you went in. We call it the subroutine, and we restore it after you got back. And it would keep a set of local variables that would not interfere with the global state. So that was a major big deal. Like, oh my God, it's amazing. Yeah. So but they still had the easiest way. Instead of making you have to know about functions and subroutines and arguments and parameters and types and all this other stuff. So people didn't want to do that. They just wanted to access the global variables. So you have these programs, if you go look at all the basic listings, all these things are all accessing each thing at the same time. Like, you had no idea. So writing it was easy because usually the person would know everything how everything's set up. But getting someone else to fix it and change it was a complete nightmare. And this is one of the reasons why the functional programming thing came through, is because this nightmare of having this shared state and shared access to state, where one thing could change it here, one thing could change it here, and one thing could change it here, and everything's changing at the same time. And then you have no idea, like, bunch of things to be changing, like a bunch of things to be changing this one thing. You have no idea where all those different things where the changes are coming in from, because you have to go look at all your code to see where it's coming from. It's so crazy. So this is why people flipped out. And they said, well, let's do singleton, which is a variable that had the context. It was like a variable that holds the context of all your global state of all your. And it was like, this is better because you're passing around. It's like, it's the same problem, guys. And I tried to explain this. He's like, no, it's different. You're not accessing it globally. You have to pass it in. It's like, okay, well, that limits it a little bit, but still you have the same issue. Like, and he was just like, not hearing it.
Singleton is just a global variable. Like, get the
Right.
fuck off your stupid horse, right?
Exactly. And that's what I try to say to them. It's like, dude, this is a global variable. It's going to have the same issues. The same issues that all global variables have. You're not getting away just because you're passing it now as a parameter to a function. Passing it around is not. It doesn't solve your problem.
So so like yes, uh, incorrect amounts of global state will make your program messy.
Okay, so incorrect mouse. I mean, how do you know that? Well, that's again nuance, right? Like, how much do you know? How much needs to have everything access it? How important is this thing? And when you're writing these programs small and you start to scale them up, this at small times it's not a big deal, but it's bigger as you go and more people come on. And everybody has to know how things are put together. Oh yeah, then you're gonna have to eventually listen to Alan Kay about what he meant by objects, which isn't an object-oriented programming, which was not classes and inheritance how you're gonna reuse on the code. It wasn't even about that. It was about an API layers, everything being contained within a cellular structure, like a biological cell. And everything that goes into the cell has to come through an API, which is the boundary layer. And anything that goes out has to go out through that boundary layer. Nothing can just come in and grab in like a knife because that'll kill it and destroy it. And that's the paradigm. It's like, and we as biological creatures, we're super complicated and we're built up from these tiny little building blocks, but they're all cellular and they all have these communication membranes for everything that happens, all including the energy transfer and messaging and all this stuff.
If you have a lot of natural global state, bad management of that can be a problem. Yes, it can cause bugs, but
Well, it's because everyone's accessing it at the same time, so it's definitely going to cause bugs, just inherently. If you want to change the type of one of these variables, like if it went from like a string of text to some hex number or some other thing, some other data structure, you have to go find all the places it's accessing it. Oh, what a nightmare!
pretending like there shouldn't be any is also stupid. It will also make your program too complicated, and it'll affect your
Right, passing the singleton around when you can just have it access a global space without having to pass it around. That's what he's trying to talk about here.
engineering ability. Because here's the problem: a good engineer needs to have clear eyes
Okay, good luck. This is the part that he's like a little bit elitist. He's like, you gotta have clear eyes. It's like, okay,
on reality, right? He needs to be doing, or she needs to be doing, a very clear cost benefit analysis at any given time, right?
yeah, but okay. That's okay, Jonathan. That's people that have agency and have control over their destiny, and aren't just working at one of these faceless corporations punching tickets. They don't have say over that stuff. They don't get cost benefit analysis. There's the ticket. How many points is it?
And if you get into the real danger of this stuff, is not exactly that you have the wrong opinion about how much global state there is or whatever. It's that you get into, like, propaganda victims get into this realm.
Right. So a lot of this stuff was driven. This thing about there's a singleton. Like this is coming from the conferences and the books and the developer work over weekend and the consulting. This is where this is coming from. So people who's like this a standard word definition issue. Global state is global state. It's a conceptual thing. Everything gets to access it, read it, and write it. All right. And then when he said, well, we have a single, so they redefined global state to have this other word where it's really important it's passed in. It's like, that's not the thing, man. That's not the issue. Is it not having an extra named parameter, which is silly. It's just having how do you manage the state, a global state where everything's accessing at the same time. And Colin is, they've the way it's handled in Kotlin, it's the functional way where you have a data block and anything that changes it, you have a new state, new state, new state, and only one thing at a time gets to change it at a time, and it has a new state, and it gets just copied over to the newest. So nothing's accessing a static thing; it's making copies, copies, copies. So that's the way people have tried to manage this stuff. If you're going to do global state, you got to have what's it called? Where it's immutable. You have immutable objects. They're only gonna make a copy, and then you can get away with having shared mutable state, but only in that state, only in that case. And it's not even really shared mutable; it's immutable because we're only making one change and making a copy, making a copy, making a copy, making a copy.
We know this from history, from politics, right? They get into this realm where they're lying to themselves all the time to maintain.
Right. Yeah. So this is also the cult. So they've been propagandized at these conferences, but they don't realize that they're being sold to. They thought it's a class because they set it up like a class, right? It looks like a class, a conference. We have speakers and you sit down and take notes, but you don't realize that these conferences are actually sales. almost nearly pure sales. So if you go in with the attitude like this person is really telling me something I need to know, versus they are selling a course, a book, a conference, a training, a what is it? Consulting. If you don't realize that's what's happening, you're gonna get caught in this cult, this card cult activity.
The propaganda, right? Like, oh, my program, yeah, it sure was a lot of work to avoid having that global state, but my program's so much better because I did all this extra work, right? You start lying to yourself as opposed to
I
observing.
mean, extra work is passing stuff. You're still sidestepping the issue. So I don't think he's not actually addressing the key issue here, which is what happens when you have all this stuff accessing the state at the same time. That's where you get all these issues that we're talking about. Let's keep going.
What actually happened. And that's the
Well, there's the maintaining the shared state, right? That's one thing. But then there's also direct access is another problem. So there's like two of them there.
problem, because as soon as you start doing that, you're not doing good engineering anymore. And
what does that mean?
That's just the downfall of everything. Like, it's just very hard to be a good programmer when you're lying to yourself all the time.
Well, yeah, but we're also told to lie. We're sold. It's not like the programmers are like, I'm lying to myself. It's like we have been sold at these conferences, at these books, with YouTube channels, blah blah blah. I'm not no shade on the game. This is how it works. If nobody told you, then bring you behind the scenes and go, hey, by the way, there's some people out here exaggerating. There's some people out here selling that they want to make money, and people are in a lots amount of pain because what they've been told and how these things work and how much scalable they are and how to design them is not real engineering. It's something else. Academia has fallen down, and we're scraping, trying to grab wherever we can, and these charlatans pop up, which have semi-truths, and they talk lots of really solid rhetoric, which is how you can tell it's a freaking sales pitch, and they're really fancy on stage. They have it all set up so that it seems like they're educating you, which they are, but they're also selling the fucking shit out of you
About these things, and you have to unlearn it. Like, I went to college, I learned certain things about programming languages and how they should be, and I had to unlearn all that stuff, and I was lying to myself about that stuff for the first several years that I was a.
Were you lying to yourself, or were you believing what you were told by people who didn't quite have your best interests at heart, or didn't understand that they had been sold to? They think that these conferences are somehow academic, is because academia has completely given up this stuff. They should be doing these conferences, not some guy like, oh, it's Microsoft, the sponsored, and we're gonna go ahead and get Oracle in here and give you a nice class about SQL. Get you a lock in there. We got you good discounted rates. Don't worry, we'll give you a discount because you're a conference goer.
Professional game programmer. It's just it's inherent to programming culture that we get propagandized, right?
Yeah,
so, and
well, not inherent. No, this is a failure of academia. This is for them being cushy. Well, I just gotta teach data structures and algorithms and C, and I'll do an operating system in there. It's like, guys, no. Teaching operating systems in the 70s and C. I mean, I love C, but let's be honest. We need to have an upgrade from something 50 years ago. Now, come on now.
See it in different
you need to listen to Alan Kay. Can't get away from it. He's gonna be king shit, because everyone's gonna have to listen to what he had to say about how to put these things together so we can keep our humanity and keep sane and not blame each other. You didn't figure it out because it's super complicated and somebody has to figure it out, not me, but you didn't do it, so you're bad. Like, you got to be straight up super genius to do some of these, to debug some of this. Go ahead and look at the basic listings, just where everything, some of them look good. Go ahead and look at them. See how they were structured. See how that stuff was put all together. And where it's like, oh yeah, this is a state of the art. It's like, is it state of the art? Really? Well, I don't think it's state of the art. I think there's a lot of trade secrets going on. I think there's so much money involved with this now that there's a lot of people pushing out stuff that maybe a psyop to confuse people, to trip them up, to make it seem like it's the most amazing answer, but it's really gonna fuck them up in the long term if they keep going with it. Solid.
Like, the object-oriented people are like so sure that you're an idiot if you don't use object-oriented programming, right?
Right.
And it's like everybody else,
because they were sold. They were sold by a guy that was so sure, Bjorn Strustrup, that this is the way everything must be done if you're going to be doing programming on the central. Yeah, we've all been sold. So programmers, because we're a little bit autist, and a little bit like spurgy, and very easy to influence because we have a problem that and we want a solution for, and we want someone to give us the right answer because we're a bit so flummoxed and flamoozled and lied to about all these other people. Oh, I got the answer for you, just a boot camp. Look, look, look. And it's like, you're gonna be a programmer in 3 months. I'm like, no, no, you're not. You just got lied to. Yeah, you got lied to. And people are pissed off about it. So instead of letting go of the fact that they got lied to, they double down on that hoe and say, "No, you're the problem because you're not a believer in the cult of computer programming." C plus plus static afferent performance. Like, yeah, man. Instead of letting go and say, "Okay, maybe I got fooled here. Maybe I should take a step back and look around what the environment is and realize everyone's getting fooled." If you don't realize it, okay. And the guys that are like, okay, I realize it, and we're suckered by it, they don't say anything. And then people are like, oh, that guy's just a fucking selling shit. It's like they're not even paying. They're not even gonna mention it because it's not even worth their time because they're on to doing something else, or they're the ones putting this shit out there. It's like, go for it. This is the answer. All you gotta do is solve it. Liskov substitution principle.
Else looks at that and they're like, what are you talking about, right? But it only makes sense if you're like deep into the cult.
Yeah.
Um,
When you've gone to the conference, you bought the book, you've listened to all the videos, you spent all your time, you took a week out of your life to go to this event that was purely just for your benefit, to learn how to program. And Uncle Bob sold you because he's got badass rhetoric. I'll give him credit for that. He knows how to talk. But what he's talking about is like maybe not the right thing. That's not the right emphasis. He hasn't changed his message years. No surveys, no studies. He knows how to do a study. I've seen him start one. Would he do a study on his stuff and it works better than something else? No, never heard of it. Okay. And by the way, that's not academic. Solid's not academic. That's just his book sells. He's a good salesman because he's got his rhetoric down. And he's very confident, like Captain Kirk's beaming down the planet. He's not going to get shot. He doesn't have a red shirt on.
so yeah, it is what it is. OOP isn't in vogue anymore. I know. That's what makes it easier to make that.
Isn't in vogue anymore. It's so funny. It's not in vogue anymore. Oh, it's not in vogue, huh? Oh, it's not in vogue. You mean the conference people figured out they can't sell it anymore? They're going to move on to something else? It's so crazy. It's not in vogue anymore. Yeah, it's because what it was told, people told what to do, and how that was put together. Bjarne's TrueSerp, C++, static access. Yeah, if you don't listen to Yegor Bugayenko and Balin K, OOP is definitely going to be a problem. Static access, global. This is what we're talking about: the global access, static access. And people think, well, I gotta get the performance out of here. I gotta get the performance. It's like, yeah, but you're gonna shoot yourself in the foot in like a year when you can't maintain this thing anymore because it's so complicated. Everyone's got the performance out of it that everything's statically accessed. These global variables. So you've coupling. No, never heard of it. Okay.
Easier to make that comment. If I made that comment 15 years ago, most people would be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Right, because the conferences were in full effect. The sales were going good. We got books coming off the shelf. We got conferences. Oh my God, you have no idea how many people have signed up for my consulting services.
You're stupid. You still don't understand OOP. You don't get it, right? And it's like, actually,
Yeah. I didn't get the sales call. I didn't fall for the sales message and bought the book in the conference and watched all the videos. Oh, I did watch the videos. I didn't go to the conferences. I didn't get the book. I looked at it. I was like, what the fuck is this shit? And then I listened to Uncle Bob and I saw the books and stuff before I saw Uncle Bob. I was like, oh. Well, and I was like, okay, well, I guess I gotta. Everybody's like super hyped up on this guy. Let's go look into it. I looked into it. I watched all of his stuff. Yeah. Not academic. Not academic. I don't even know if it's even engineering. This is that one interview. I did an L. So I called up my buddy, and he said, he's my mathematician friend, and he told me that I should use Liskov substitution principles for my L. And I was like, what's that? And he said, well, it's basically interfaces with a fancy word with notation, but it's basically ports and adapters. Ooh, that's a good L.
I get it, guys. I've done it. It sucks. um, Observing actual reality is a big problem. In my experience, people tend to be afraid of global state because they do not know the requirements and play what if games. Yeah. Well, but also, I mean, here's
I mean, the requirements change, so you gotta find a way to fix it and manage it and deal with it. How do you do that? My course, How to Program from the Ground Up, talks about how you can do that.
the thing. It is true that programming is hard, and when we go to solve a problem, we're following some heuristics that we learned about how to be good programmers.
Right.
And the problem is that
Well, partially, but partially is also our imagination about how to solve this particular problem in front of us. And maybe we have to grow. Maybe we have to learn things and be uncomfortable. Maybe we have to learn stuff that and then go ahead and unlearn it. Realize it's freaking stupid. Or maybe there's one tiny little glimmer of something in there that makes sense, and the rest of it's garbage. How you gonna know? You're never gonna know unless you start throwing darts, man. Throwing those experiments out, seeing for yourself. And yeah, guess what? It takes a long time. There's no easy path. That's why it's valuable. When you get there, it's like, oh shit, how did you find this? Well, I did the adventure driven. I went up the side of the mountain. I was looking for the hole, and I'd been looking for a long time. You know, an overnight success takes about 20 years. Give me a like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you later.